You know how it's like have to experience and live and feel and see to connect all the dots? It's kind of the idea of like, you can read all about it, you can learn all about it, you can study it, you can go to schools for it, but until you actually experience it, it doesn't fully sink in, it doesn't fully integrate. You can talk about it until you're blue in the face. That's not even the point. I don't think that's the full point of this message. It is about like dots connecting, right? Like it fully clicking, fully integrating, fully actualizing. How can I? They showed a bunch of different examples of different people, places, spaces, and time that I've encountered. And it is always kind of like a puzzle, right? Because, people, places, or things you had well forgotten will come back into play years later when something else occurs. And you're like, oh my God, that's what that meant then, this kind of thing. And this is happening all the time for all of us. And it's all quite a comedy skit when you really step back and look at it all and how magical it really is. All these moving parts, and they all just happen to, and it's really about energy, right? And where you're vibrating and what you're choosing. And some of it is orchestrated and well beyond our comprehension. And that's what makes it magical, right? Like feel like magic, especially when it's positive, it feels like that. It's good and exciting. How can I explain what they were showing? I'm going to see if I can just speak it in code and plainly at the same time. Like there's certain schools that over time have shown the pattern of cranking out certain types of people, not on the surface level or intentionally. That's not why that school is in place as it is, but just happens that school is in place where it is, and happens to be in a location where it is, where it also cranks out that kind of result, unbeknownst to many. And it's also a well-known or accredited or this kind of thing, so it also attracts a certain caliber, and it's all set up beautifully for exactly what it cranks out, even though many people never knew that's what's the true intent behind. It's like the mask, right? It's like the laundering of, instead of money, people. And, and this is happening all the time in all types of ways, but this is a good example of one of these ways. But then it also, it's like takes advantage of those as well, which is interesting because it is of a more educated caliber. And so you wouldn't think they would be as easily manipulated, and they are. Everybody is. There isn't anybody who isn't. It's just finding that weakness and where they're vulnerable, where they aren't truly loving and honoring themselves. That's why the best thing you could do for yourself always and forever is to get real and honest and true with yourself, which can be really challenging for people, and decide where you really aren't loving yourself, where you're really not honoring yourself, because that's where your weak spot is. So you need to work on your weak spot. Only you can. I can tell you all day long, you're wonderful, but it's irrelevant if your insides don't match that belief. You have to match those beliefs, and you have to do that inner work to do it, and to believe it, to believe yourself, to know it to be true. And anyway, so how can I say it? So they were taking these people who you would think were much smarter, wiser, but it's not always what it's about, really. It's not about how wise or how smart you are. It is more about how much you love yourself, and finding that balance of truly understanding what that means, right? It's like, don't go so far into fear either of being afraid to live because you don't want to get taken. You know what I'm saying? Like there's all these layers to it, but nonetheless, okay, trying to get there. Taking these people who we would think of as smart, wise, whatever, but they're still so naive and inexperienced in so many other areas of life. That's what makes them weak there, and they don't realize it because their head is filled with so much knowledge. And so they become like stunted emotionally, and then They're so smart, though, that they can recognize when and where they're getting taken advantage of in other ways. And so then they dishonor themselves by also associating with much lower level in IQ people. And here's what it is. It's not like they're trying to engage with people with lesser IQ to feel superior. No, it's actually to feel safe, in that they don't think they'll be manipulated by those people, because those people aren't out to get them in the way that they've been gotten previously. And so they don't recognize that they're still being manipulated, but from a very different angle that they didn't feel like they ever had to be protected from previously. And so then it's just sad, right? Then it ends up being sad, because they never really learned the true lesson of loving oneself, because it's always a choice, right? Like, so we're all always presented with all these lessons, and then we can get stuck in that paranoia or woe is me or sad or embarrassed or ashamed or guilt. Like, we can get stuck in all those loops and traps because we're still identifying with past versions of ourselves, where it's like, no, that was a past version. That's no longer who you are. If you choose to drop it, leave it, and move forward. Some people attempt to, and I'm going to try to explain what they're showing, and I think I can understand and relate, because I think we all can relate to some degree, where they're showing some people attempt to do so. So I guess it's like, drop that ego, drop that identity, and move forward with good, pure intent, with good intentions. So I think they're showing that, but I think it's like, well, okay, but so let me just finish the thought. So then what they're showing is then something, it's like bad still happens, right? Or another scenario happens similar to the previous life, previous identity. And so then they revert back, going up, say, no, it's not true. And so to me, it is moving ahead with pure intent, but it's not with full integration or wisdom, meaning they hadn't fully learned that lesson to actually move on to the next square. They just wanted to move on to the next square, to move forward, because we all want to, and we want to believe that we've done the work and dropped the ego and da. But that's why we are, quote, tested. And again, it's not about in a malicious way. It's like, well, are you going to bust through that illusion and leave the identity behind? Or are you going to continually compare and contrast and say, well, this experience was just like before, so everybody's the same. It's not me, it's them. Well, that's still blaming outside oneself, and that's still dragging the past with you, and it's still choosing to then be sour and miserable, right? Like, we can have experiences happen, and we can... It's really hard to explain what they're showing, because they're using personal things, and so maybe they're trying to teach me, which always is the case, but it's the juggle and the balance. To me, it's always just trusting yourself. That's what it's got to boil down to. You got to love and honor and trust yourself. Period. End of story. This is why people can come and go, because you can love yourself so fully that you're always honoring you. That said, they're showing, it's like you might have, it's like trusted the wrong person. It's like the boy who cried wolf. And then you finally are like, all right, never again, because clearly this is the boy who cried wolf. But the boy who cried wolf finally fucking needs help. And he's finally ready to drop the ego. And he's finally ready to come in. And yet then nobody ever believes him, because they're like, well, you've played that song and dance so many times. I'm no longer the fool. What is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. However the saying goes. And some of us are just fools for days. Like, we're fools to, fool me 412 million times. But that's a choice too, right? It's like, you could look at that as the lesson of, you can fool me every time, but I'm still going to open my heart to what I love, right? And so that's part of this lesson here, which I'm trying to spit out, which is clearly challenging for me, where if that person comes in and you truly feel the energy shift, And it's truly your heart's desire. You're not doing it out of pity. You're not doing it out of boredom. You're not doing it out of lack of options. You're not doing it out of, but you're truly honoring you. And you're like, no, my heart still wants this. I love this. This is, I'm excited to, and if it fails tomorrow, well, it fails tomorrow. I had a great today. But you have to be okay with that, right? Like, it really is the zero expectations, and you have to be true with yourself. Are you going to be okay? Because some are not. And then you're stuck in this cycle. You haven't learned and moved forward. And this is why it can be tricky from the visual or the outside. Other people could see that same scenario and think you're lying to yourself or lying to the other or deceiving, who knows what, who cares? You have to be in alignment with you. But then I'm still not saying it as clearly as I'd like, but then it's a choice for you. In other words, that same scenario, the boy who cried wolf comes in, but then you can choose to then always live in okay, I'm going to give him another shot. And it actually ends up working out, but it doesn't really, because you're always living in a state of mistrust, and mistrust breeds mistrust. So the more you focus there, the more you're going to get that. And then you're not listening and honoring yourself, because then you're forever uncomfortable in your body, and you're always upset, and you're always worried and fretting and looking over your shoulder. And what kind of fucking life is that to live? That's no way to live. So that boils down to what? You're not loving and honoring yourself, and you're not being honest with yourself. You can't trust that person, and you can't seem to mentally get over that. Or you mentally can get over it, and you choose to drop all that shit and live in the present moment and honor you, and not have your focus on them, but have your focus on you and how it feels for you and loving you. Because then it doesn't matter if they leave tomorrow or not. It doesn't matter if it's like, you just have to be honest with you. And that is hard for people, because people are often looking to get. And when you're looking to get, it's really challenging to be honest with yourself, because your ego will convince you to behave in said ways to get love, to get validation, to get money, to get stuff, to get whatever it is. It's like you'll trick yourself. Your ego will lie to yourself to get that. This is why you have to give it to yourself in all those ways. That's loving and accepting yourself and being true and honest with yourself. Like, oh my God, I'm really deprived here, here, and here. I need to figure out healthy ways to fill that up so that I can come and move from an honest, pure state. Otherwise, you're lying to you and you're lying to them, and it will always fail. It'll crumble and fall. That's the faulty foundation. It's built on lies. And so I don't even know how this one started. That's been happening a lot again lately. That happens throughout time. If you've been listening, it happens now and then, doesn't it? Where it's like, they'll start me off with a point and a purpose, and they'll flow me into stories, and then I'll start to flow into other things. And then all of a sudden it's, what it feels like? It almost feels like they slip out of my body, and I'm like, what? Why am I here? Why am I on here? I know I'm speaking. I have no idea about what. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.